Lily's phone died at the exact moment baby Emma decided to unleash a wail that could wake the dead. The diaper bag chose that same instant to split open, sending formula packets, diapers, and tiny socks cascading across the airport gate like confetti from hell. Gate 12, she muttered through gritted teeth, scooping up Emma with one arm while stuffing wayward baby supplies back into the ruined bag with the other. Gate 12, Gate 12, Gate 12. The mantra had kept her sane through the taxi ride where the driver had gotten lost, the security line that moved like molasses, and the coffee shop that had run out of everything except decaf. Because of course they had. Emma's cries escalated to air raid siren levels as Lily stumbled down the jet bridge, her nursing uniform wrinkled from a 14-hour shift, her hair escaping its ponytail in ways that defied physics. She'd burned through her savings for this ticket to Portland, a job interview that could change everything. If she could just get there without losing her mind. The flight attendant barely glanced up as Lily boarded, too busy arranging what looked like actual crystal glasses. Weird, but maybe budget airlines were stepping up their game. She shuffled toward the back, expecting cramped seats and recycled air. Instead, she found herself staring at leather seats the color of rich cream, each one larger than her entire kitchen table. The cabin smelled like money and cedar, not the usual mixture of industrial cleaner and desperation she was used to. Oh. The word slipped out as Emma's cries softened to hiccuping whimpers. This is nice. She found her row and sank into a seat that probably cost more than 3 months of her rent. Emma immediately grabbed a fistful of the butter-soft leather and tried to gum it. No, baby girl, Lily whispered, gently extracting tiny fingers. We can't eat the airplane. Excuse me. The voice cut through the cabin like winter wind, smooth, controlled, and absolutely arctic. Lily looked up to find the source and nearly swallowed her tongue. The man standing in the aisle had to be the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen, which was saying something since she'd just spent 6 months staring at Emma's perfect little face. He was tall enough that he had to duck slightly under the cabin's ceiling, with dark hair that looked like he'd run his fingers through it and shoulders that filled out his expensive suit like it was tailored by angels. But it was his eyes that made her breath catch. Gray as storm clouds and twice as dangerous, they were currently fixed on her with the kind of intensity that made small animals play dead. You're in my seat, he said, his voice carrying the kind of authority that moved mountains and toppled governments. Lily blinked. What? My seat. He gestured to the leather chair she was currently occupying like it was a throne. You're in it. Emma chose that moment to let out another wail, as if sensing the tension crackling between the adults. The man's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I'm sorry, there must be some mistake, Lily said, raising her voice over Emma's protests. The gate agent told me gate 12. This is my seat. She fumbled for her boarding pass with her free hand, the destroyed diaper bag sliding off her shoulder and dumping fresh chaos onto the pristine cabin floor. The man watched a pacifier bounce off his Italian leather shoes with the expression of someone witnessing the apocalypse. Gate 12, he repeated slowly, like he was talking to someone who'd suffered recent head trauma. Yes. Gate 12. Lily's own voice was climbing toward hysteria. Emma was now full-on shrieking, her little face red and blotchy. Look, I don't know what kind of upgrade this is, but I paid for this seat, and I'm not moving until... Ma'am. A flight attendant appeared beside them, her smile strained. I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. This is a private aircraft. The words hit Lily like a slap. A what? A private jet, the man said, his tone suggesting she might be the dumbest person to ever draw a breath. My private jet. Which you have somehow managed to board despite the fact that commercial flights use Gate 21. Gate 21? Lily's stomach dropped somewhere around her ankles. But the agent said. The agent was probably referring to your actual flight, which I imagine is currently boarding 3 gates down. His gray eyes swept over her with clinical detachment, taking in her rumpled scrubs, her chaotic bag, her screaming baby. Without you. The cabin suddenly felt too small, too warm, too everything. Lily could feel heat creeping up her neck as the full scope of her disaster became clear. She'd not only missed her flight, she'd somehow wandered onto some billionaire's private plane like the world's most pathetic stowaway. Emma's wails reached a frequency that probably violated several international treaties. "I'm so sorry," Lily gasped, struggling to stand while juggling baby and bag. I'll get off right now." "Actually," the man said, and something in his voice made her freeze. "You won't." She looked up to find those storm-gray eyes fixed on hers with an intensity that made her knees wobble. "The cabin door is sealed," he continued, his voice deadly calm. "We're second in line for takeoff." As if on cue, the captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "Mr. Frost, we've received clearance. Preparing for departure." Lily stared at him. "Frost? As in Adrian Frost?" His smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "The one and only." She knew that name. Everyone knew that name. Adrian Frost, CEO of Frost Enterprises, worth more money than some small countries. The man they called the Ice King in the business magazines. The alpha who'd never been photographed smiling, never been linked to anyone romantically, and who had a reputation for destroying anyone who got in his way. And she was trapped on his private jet with a screaming baby and a diaper bag that had exploded like a small bomb. Emma let out another ear-splitting wail. Adrian Frost closed his eyes like a man praying for patience, or possibly divine intervention. "This," he said quietly, "is going to be a very long flight." Chapter 2. The smell hit them first. It was a scent so uniquely horrific that it seemed to violate several laws of physics and possibly a few international treaties. Emma's crying had stopped abruptly, replaced by a suspicious gurgling sound that made every adult in the vicinity take an instinctive step backward. "Oh no," Lily whispered, her face draining of what little color it had left. "Oh no, no, no." Captain Reynolds' voice crackled over the intercom, tight with barely concealed panic. "Mr. Frost, we have a situation. Tower is requesting we return to the gate immediately." Adrian's perfectly controlled expression cracked slightly. "What kind of situation?" "Sir, I believe we've triggered a biohazard protocol." The words hung in the recycled air like a death sentence. Through the small windows, Lily could see ground crews scrambling around the plane in what appeared to be hazmat suits. "Biohazard?" Adrian's voice climbed half an octave, his legendary composure finally showing stress fractures. "From a baby?" Emma chose that moment to let out a happy babble, apparently quite pleased with her biological warfare capabilities. "I'm so sorry," Lily gasped, swaying on her feet as the full catastrophe of the situation crashed over her. She'd not only invaded a billionaire's private jet, she'd managed to ground it with her baby's digestive system. "I'm so sorry. I'll pay for whatever, I'll figure out how to." The cabin tilted slightly, or maybe that was just her vision. The stress of the last 24 hours, the missed meals, the constant worry about money and the future, it all crashed down on her at once like a wave. "Ma'am?" The flight attendant, whose name tag read Jessica, looked concerned. "You don't look well." "I'm fine," Lily lied, gripping the back of Adrian's seat as the world started to spin. "I just need to change her and clean up this mess and..." The last thing she registered before hitting the expensive carpet was Adrian Frost's shocked curse and the sound of Emma's delighted laughter. When Lily came to, she was horizontal on the leather seat, a cashmere throw tucked around her shoulders and a cool cloth on her forehead. Emma was nowhere to be seen, but she could hear her daughter's happy babbling from somewhere nearby. "Easy," a deep voice said as she tried to sit up. "You've been out for about 10 minutes. She turned her head to find Adrian Frost crouched beside her seat, his suit jacket gone, his white shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal surprisingly muscled forearms. His tie was loosened, and his usually perfect hair looked like he'd been running his hands through it. "Emma," she croaked, struggling to focus. "Is fine," he said, his tone gentler than she'd heard it before. "Jessica is handling the situation." From the galley came the sounds of running water and what might have been suppressed gagging. Emma's happy gurgle suggested she was thoroughly enjoying being the center of attention. "The flight," Lily started. "Grounded indefinitely." Adrian's jaw tightened. Apparently your daughter's digestive system qualified as a Category 3 biological incident. The FAA has very specific protocols for that sort of thing. Lily closed her eyes, mortification washing over her in waves. Your meeting in Vegas. Postponed. His voice was carefully neutral, but she could hear the controlled frustration underneath. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I'll figure out how to make this right, I promise. I'll pay for the cleaning, the delay, whatever you need. With what money? The question was blunt but not unkind. You bought the cheapest ticket you could find, you're wearing scrubs that have seen better days, and you're carrying a diaper bag held together with hope and desperation. Heat flooded her cheeks. I have savings. Do you? Those gray eyes studied her face with uncomfortable intensity. When did you last eat something? The question caught her off guard. This morning. I think. You think. It's been a busy day, she said defensively, trying to sit up again. The world tilted alarmingly, and Adrian's hand shot out to steady her shoulder. Stay down, he ordered, his alpha authority making her omega instincts want to comply immediately. Jessica is bringing you some crackers and juice. I don't need. You fainted, he said flatly. On my airplane. Which makes you my responsibility until we can get this sorted out. From the galley came a string of creative cursing that would have made a sailor blush, followed by Jessica's strained voice. Mr. Frost? I'm going to need backup over here. Adrian's expression shifted to something that might have been panic if he were anyone else. On him, it just looked like intense focus tinged with horror. She needs a diaper change, Jessica called. And possibly an exorcism. Lily started to rise again. No. Adrian's hand was firm on her shoulder. You can barely sit up. I'll handle it. You'll handle it? Lily stared at him. Do you know anything about babies? His silence was answer enough. Oh, this should be good, she muttered, settling back into the seat despite her embarrassment. Adrian stood, straightening his shoulders like a soldier preparing for battle. How hard can it be? The answer, as it turned out, was very hard. From her position on the couch, Lily listened to what sounded like a small war being fought in the galley. There was a lot of muttered cursing, several sharp exclamations of disgust, and at one point what sounded suspiciously like gagging. Emma, meanwhile, seemed to find the entire situation hilarious. Jessica, Adrian's voice was strained. Which end of this thing goes where? The tabs go in the back, Mr. Frost. There are no tabs. There's just adhesive chaos. You have to peel the backing off first. A pause. Then, there's backing? Despite her mortification, Lily found herself fighting back a smile. Adrian Frost, master of the universe, defeated by a Huggies little mover. Sir, I think you might have it upside down. Upside down? His voice climbed higher. How can a diaper be upside down? Well, when the character from Frozen is on her bottom instead of her belly, that's usually a sign. For the love of, Emma, stop moving. A delighted squeal from Emma suggested she was thoroughly enjoying her inadvertent tormentor's struggles. Mr. Frost, Jessica said carefully, perhaps we should wait for her mother to. No. Adrian's voice was granite hard with determination. I can change one diaper. I've negotiated billion-dollar mergers. I've restructured entire corporations. I will not be defeated by something that involves this much adhesive. Lily pressed her lips together to keep from laughing. The man who struck fear into the hearts of Fortune 500 executives was currently being outsmarted by a 6-month-old. There, Adrian announced finally, triumph evident in his tone. See? Perfectly adequate diaper application. The silence that followed was ominous. Sir, Jessica said slowly, I think you might want to look at that again. Another pause. Why does it look like a abstract art project? Because you've somehow managed to get it twisted into a Mobius strip, sir. Lily couldn't hold back her snort of laughter. Adrian's head appeared around the corner, his hair disheveled and his expression murderous. "Something amusing about my diaper technique?" he asked with deadly calm. "Oh no," Lily said, fighting to keep her face straight. "I'm sure it's very creative." Emma let out another delighted babble, and Adrian disappeared back into the galley with what sounded like a growled threat about finding new flight attendants who came with baby handling certifications. 20 minutes and 3 more attempts later, Jessica emerged from the galley looking shell-shocked, carrying a clean and apparently happy Emma. Adrian followed, his shirt now bearing suspicious stains and his expression that of a man who had stared into the abyss and found it full of baby wipes. "The situation is contained," Jessica announced weakly. "For now," Adrian muttered, slumping into the seat across from Lily like he'd just fought a war. Which, she supposed, he had. Emma babbled happily at her mother, reaching out with grabby hands. Lily took her daughter carefully, still feeling shaky but better after the forced rest. "Thank you," she said quietly, looking between Adrian and Jessica. "Both of you. I know this isn't what you signed up for." "No," Adrian agreed, his gray eyes studying Emma with something that might have been grudging respect. "It really isn't." Captain Reynolds' voice crackled over the intercom again. "Mr. Frost, we've got an update from the tower. The hazmat team needs another hour for full decontamination protocols. We're looking at a minimum 3-hour delay." Adrian closed his eyes and leaned his head back against the leather seat. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked almost human, tired, frustrated, and slightly defeated by circumstances beyond his control. "Your Vegas meeting," Lily said softly. "We'll have to wait." He opened his eyes and looked at her. "The Meridian Group isn't going anywhere, and neither are we, apparently." Guilt twisted in her stomach. She knew who the Meridian Group was, everyone in business did. They were Adrian's biggest competitors, and if the rumors were true, he'd been trying to acquire them for months. This meeting could have been worth billions. And she'd ruined it with baby poop. "I'm sorry," she whispered again, the words feeling inadequate. "I know you must hate me right now." Something flickered in his expression. Hate is a strong word. Strongly dislike? Wish I'd never been born? Planning to have me blacklisted from every airline in existence? His mouth quirked slightly at one corner. It might have been the beginning of a smile if she didn't know better. "I haven't decided yet," he said. "Though I have to admit, in 34 years, no one has ever grounded my plane with a diaper." Emma gurgled happily and reached toward Adrian, her little fist opening and closing in the universal baby gesture for "pick me up." Adrian looked at the tiny hand like it might explode. "She likes you," Lily said, surprised. "She has terrible judgment," he replied, but his voice lacked its earlier edge. Jessica reappeared with a tray of crackers, juice, and what looked like actual crystal glasses filled with water. "The catering service is sending over some proper food," she announced. "And I've taken the liberty of contacting a baby supply store. They're bringing emergency provisions." "Emergency provisions?" Lily asked weakly. "Diapers," Adrian said grimly. "Many, many diapers." Emma chose that moment to make another suspicious face, her little body going rigid in the way that every parent learns to fear. 3 pairs of adult eyes fixed on her with mounting horror. "Round 2, Adrian said quietly. And somewhere in the distance, Lily could swear she heard the hazmat team requesting additional equipment. Chapter 3. 3 hours and 47 minutes later, they were finally airborne. The hazmat team had declared the aircraft safe for flight, though Lily noticed several of them crossing themselves as they walked away from the plane. Adrian had changed into a fresh shirt that Jessica had somehow procured from his emergency wardrobe. Apparently billionaires kept spare clothing on their jets the way normal people kept spare change in their car. He sat across from Lily now, his laptop open, fingers flying across the keyboard as he tried to salvage what remained of his Vegas deal via video conference. Lily could hear voices coming from his screen, sharp and impatient. Words like unacceptable delay and questionable reliability drifted across the cabin. Each phrase made her sink further into her leather seat. Emma had been surprisingly calm during takeoff, fascinated by the changing pressure in her ears. But now, as they reached cruising altitude, she was beginning to make the fussy noises that every parent learned to dread. "Shoo, baby girl," Lily whispered, bouncing Emma gently. "Just a little bit longer." But Emma's whimpers were escalating, and Lily knew exactly what the problem was. It had been hours since Emma's last bottle, and her daughter was moving rapidly from mildly annoyed to absolutely furious. Lily dug through her reconstructed diaper bag with growing desperation. Formula packets, check. Bibs, check. Tiny spoons, check. Extra clothes, check. Bottles? Her heart sank as she realized the truth. In her exhausted rush that morning, she'd left Emma's bottles sitting on the kitchen counter next to the coffee maker. "Oh no," she breathed, Emma's cries starting to climb toward air raid levels again. Adrian's fingers paused over his keyboard. Through the laptop screen, she could hear someone saying, "Adrian? Adrian, are you still there?" "I'll be right back," Adrian said tightly, closing the laptop with perhaps more force than necessary. He looked at Lily with those storm-gray eyes. "What now?" Lily's voice cracked with the effort not to cry. "I forgot her bottles." The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by Emma's increasingly outraged wails. "You forgot her bottles," Adrian repeated slowly. "I have formula," Lily said quickly, holding up one of the packets like it might somehow solve everything. "I just need something to put it in." Adrian stared at her for a long moment, then pressed a button on his armrest. "Marcus." A smooth voice answered immediately through the intercom. "Yes, Mr. Frost? I need you to create baby food." The pause was so long that Lily wondered if the connection had been lost. "Sir, could you repeat that?" "The infant requires sustenance." "Make it happen." "Mr. Frost, I'm not sure I understand." "Are you requesting food?" Adrian said with strained patience. "For a baby. A 6-month-old baby who apparently consumes liquid nutrition from specialized containers that we do not possess." Another pause. "I see. I'll do my best, sir." Lily wanted to disappear into the leather seat. "You don't have to. I mean, maybe I could just." "Could just what?" Adrian's voice was sharp with frustration. "Fashion a bottle from airplane parts? Perform some sort of feeding magic?" Emma's cries reached a new octave that made every piece of crystal in the cabin vibrate ominously. "I'm sorry," Lily whispered, tears finally spilling over. "I'm so sorry. I know I've ruined everything. Your meeting, your plane, your entire day. I can't do anything right." Something shifted in Adrian's expression as he watched tears slide down her cheeks. The hard lines around his eyes softened slightly, and he looked almost uncomfortable. "Don't," he said awkwardly. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Cry." He shifted in his seat like the tears made him physically uncomfortable. "I don't handle crying well." Despite everything, Lily almost smiled. "Most alphas don't." "I'm not most alphas," he said automatically, then seemed to realize how that sounded. "I mean." Marcus appeared from the galley, looking like a man facing his execution. He was younger than Lily had expected, maybe early 30s, with the kind of precise posture that suggested culinary school and serious training. "Mr. Frost," Marcus said carefully, "I've prepared several options." He set down a silver tray that looked like it belonged in a 5-star restaurant. On it were several small crystal bowls, each containing what appeared to be different colored baby food. "We have pureed salmon with dill," Marcus announced with the tone of someone naming items at their own funeral, "liquefied foie gras with truffle oil, and a caviar-based protein blend." Lily stared at the tray in horror. You made her gourmet baby food?" "I worked with what we had available," Marcus said defensively. "The galley is stocked for discerning adult palates, not this." Emma's wails had reached the frequency that probably violated several noise ordinances. Her little face was red and blotchy, and she was doing that thing where she arched her back in complete baby outrage. "Maybe she'll try it?" Lily said desperately, reaching for one of the tiny crystal spoons. The first spoonful of pureed salmon lasted approximately 0.3 seconds in Emma's mouth before it was forcefully rejected across the cabin, landing with a splat on Adrian's laptop screen. "My quarterly reports," Adrian said faintly, staring at the salmon-covered screen. "The foie gras?" Marcus suggested weakly. Emma's response to the foie gras was even more enthusiastic in its rejection, coating the leather seat and Marcus's pristine white jacket. "Perhaps the caviar," Marcus started. "No," Adrian said firmly. "No more projectile gourmet food." Emma was now in full meltdown mode, her cries echoing through the cabin like an air raid siren. Lily felt tears streaming down her own face as she tried desperately to soothe her daughter. "I don't know what to do," she sobbed. "She's hungry, and I can't feed her, and everything I touch turns into a disaster." Adrian looked between the screaming baby and the crying Omega with the expression of a man who'd found himself in a situation that no amount of business school had prepared him for. "There has to be something," he muttered, standing up abruptly. "Jessica, do we have any normal food?" Jessica appeared, looking frazzled. "Define normal, sir." "Not pureed with truffle oil," Adrian said grimly. "We have some crackers, plain bread, fruit." "Fruit," Lily said suddenly. "Do you have bananas?" "I believe so." "And maybe a fork? Something to mash them with?" Jessica disappeared and returned with a banana and a silver fork that probably cost more than Lily's monthly grocery budget. Lily began mashing the banana in one of the crystal bowls, adding a little water to make it smooth. "She might take this," Lily said hopefully, offering Emma a tiny spoonful. Emma looked at the mashed banana, looked at her mother, and proceeded to sneeze so violently that banana puree exploded across the cabin like a small bomb. Adrian, who had been leaning over to observe, caught the full force of the banana blast across his face and shirt. For a moment, the only sound was Emma's continued screaming and the gentle hum of the jet engines. Adrian stood very still, banana dripping from his chin, his shirt splattered with yellow goo. His expression was completely unreadable. "Sir?" Marcus ventured quietly. "Perhaps a towel." "Don't," Adrian said in a voice that could have frozen hell over. "Move." Lily wanted to crawl under the seat and disappear forever. "I am so. I swear," Adrian interrupted, wiping banana from his face with mechanical precision, "if you apologize one more time, I'm going to lose what's left of my sanity." He stalked toward the galley, muttering under his breath. Lily caught fragments, merger falling apart. "Covered in baby food. Questioning my life choices." Emma, meanwhile, had worked herself into such a state that she was starting to hyperventilate between screams. "Please, baby," Lily whispered desperately. "Please just try to calm down." But Emma was beyond reason, lost in the particular kind of infant rage that could only be soothed by exactly what she wanted, when she wanted it. Adrian reappeared from the galley wearing a fresh shirt, his third of the day, and carrying what looked like a coffee cup. "What are you doing?" Lily asked. "Problem solving," he said grimly. He sat down across from her and held up the cup. "Warm milk. From the coffee service." "You can't give her regular milk," Lily protested. "She's too young." "Not to drink," Adrian said impatiently. "To mix with the formula." Lily stared at him. It was so simple, so obvious, and she'd been too panicked and exhausted to think of it. That might actually work, she admitted. Adrian's mouth quirked slightly. "Don't sound so surprised. I didn't become a billionaire by accident." Working together, they mixed formula with the warm milk in another crystal bowl. The consistency wasn't perfect, it was thicker than it should be, but it was something Emma could eat with a spoon. "Here, baby girl," Lily cooed, offering Emma a tiny spoonful. "Please try this." Emma eyed the spoon suspiciously, her screams reducing to hiccuping sobs. She opened her mouth slightly, allowed the spoon to enter, and swallowed. The silence that followed was miraculous. Emma blinked, considering the taste, then opened her mouth for more. It's working, Lily whispered, afraid to speak too loudly and break the spell. Of course it's working, Adrian said, but she could hear the relief in his voice. For the next 20 minutes, they worked in careful harmony, Lily feeding Emma while Adrian held fresh napkins and cleaned up spills with the efficiency of a man used to handling crises. Emma ate steadily, her earlier fury forgotten in the face of finally getting what she needed. When Emma was finally full and content, she settled back in Lily's arms with a satisfied sigh and promptly fell asleep. The cabin fell quiet except for the gentle hum of the engines. Well, Marcus said eventually, surveying the banana-splattered cabin. That was educational. Adrian looked around at the chaos, destroyed food, stained seats, his laptop still decorated with pureed salmon, and made a sound that might have been laughter if it hadn't sounded so incredulous. 12 hours ago, my biggest problem was whether to restructure the Denver acquisition, he said. Now I'm covered in baby food and my jet looks like a war zone. Lily started. Don't, Adrian warned. Don't apologize again. I might actually start crying myself. Lily bit back the apology and instead said quietly, thank you. For helping. You didn't have to. No, Adrian agreed, settling back in his seat and studying the sleeping baby in her arms. I really didn't. Something in his voice made her look up. He was watching Emma with an expression she couldn't quite read, part bewilderment, part fascination, and something else she didn't dare name. She's not what I expected, he said finally. What did you expect? Honestly? I try not to think about babies at all. There. He gestured vaguely. Unpredictable. Chaotic. Everything I spend my life trying to control. And yet you helped anyway. He was quiet for a long moment. Maybe I'm more unpredictable than I thought. Emma stirred slightly in her sleep, making soft baby sounds. Without thinking, Adrian reached out and gently adjusted her blanket. The simple gesture made something flutter in Lily's chest, something dangerous and hopeful that she quickly tried to suppress. We should be in Portland in about an hour, he said, pulling his hand back like he'd been burned. Right, Lily said softly. Back to the real world. Back to reality, Adrian agreed, but he didn't sound entirely convinced that reality was where he wanted to be. Chapter 4. The first sign that their luck hadn't improved was the fact that they weren't landing in Portland. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Reynolds, the voice crackled over the intercom as they began their descent. Due to air traffic control restrictions, we've been diverted to McCarran International Airport in Las Vegas. Mr. Frost, we should have you back on schedule within a few hours. Lily looked up from where she'd been dozing with Emma still sleeping in her arms. Vegas? Adrian was already on his phone, his fingers flying as he typed. Air traffic snarl over Portland. Something about a storm system. He didn't look up from his screen. We'll refuel, wait for clearance, and continue on. But even as he said it, Lily could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw was set. Nothing about this trip was going according to plan, and for a man like Adrian Frost, a man who probably scheduled his breathing, that had to be torture. They touched down in Vegas as the sun was setting, painting the desert sky in shades of orange and pink. Through the small windows, Lily could see the famous strip in the distance, all neon and glitter and promise. Emma stirred in her arms as they taxied, making soft whimpering sounds that immediately put Lily on high alert. Her daughter's cheeks were flushed, and when Lily pressed her hand to Emma's forehead, her heart sank. She's warm, Lily murmured. Adrian looked up from his phone. Warm how? Fever warm. Lily's voice was tight with worry. It's probably just the altitude change, but... Emma's whimper escalated to a full cry, but it was different from her earlier hungry wails. This was the weak, miserable sound of a sick baby, and it made every maternal instinct in Lily's body go on red alert. We need to get off this plane, she said, standing carefully with Emma. She needs to be somewhere stable, somewhere I can monitor her temperature properly. Adrian's phone buzzed, and his expression darkened as he read the message. That might be a problem. What kind of problem? The kind where there's a massive storm system over the entire Pacific Northwest, and we're grounded until tomorrow morning at the earliest. Lily stared at him. Tomorrow morning? At the earliest, Adrian repeated grimly. Which means we need hotel rooms. He was already dialing before he finished speaking, his voice sharp and businesslike when someone answered. This is Adrian Frost. I need the penthouse suite at the Bellagio immediately. Lily could hear the voice on the other end, apologetic but firm. Adrian's expression grew progressively darker as the conversation continued. What do you mean, flooded? He snapped. How does a penthouse flood? A pause. A burst pipe in the floor above? What floor is above the penthouse? Another pause. The roof. A burst pipe on the roof. Of course. Emma's cries were getting weaker, more pitiful, and Lily could feel panic starting to claw at her chest. Her baby was sick, they were stuck in Vegas, and judging by Adrian's expression, they didn't have anywhere to stay. Fine, Adrian was saying through gritted teeth. What do you have available? A longer pause. You're joking. An even longer pause. No, I understand that Elvis week was last month, but surely, he stopped, pinched the bridge of his nose. Fine. Book it. He ended the call and looked at Lily with the expression of a man who had stared into the abyss and found it decorated with rhinestones. Please tell me we have somewhere to stay, Lily said weakly. We have somewhere to stay, Adrian confirmed. You're not going to like it. The Heartbreak Hotel, Vegas's most romantic Elvis experience, was exactly as awful as it sounded. The lobby was a shrine to the king, complete with gold lame curtains, fake leopard print everything, and a life-size statue of Elvis in his white jumpsuit years. The carpet was a swirling pattern of musical notes and hearts that made Lily's eyes water just looking at it. The desk clerk, whose name tag read Priscilla, was wearing a pink beehive wig and enough makeup to stock a theater company. Welcome to the Heartbreak Hotel, honey, Priscilla drawled in an accent that was supposed to be southern but sounded more like New Jersey trying very hard. Y'all are gonna love the Burning Love Suite. The what now? Adrian asked faintly. The Burning Love Suite. It's our premier romantic getaway, sugar. Heart-shaped bed, mirrored ceiling, champagne hot tub shaped like a guitar. One room, Adrian interrupted. You said you only had one room available. That's right, darlin'. Everyone else is booked solid with the International Tribute Artists Convention. Priscilla beamed at them. But don't you worry, the Burning Love Suite has everything you need for a romantic evening. There's even a karaoke machine programmed with all the King's greatest hits. Emma let out another weak cry, and Lily felt her own knees wobble. The stress, the lack of sleep, the constant worry, it was all catching up with her, and her omega constitution was hitting its limit. We'll take it, she said quickly, before Adrian could object. Please. My baby is sick, and we just need somewhere to rest. Something in her voice must have gotten through to Priscilla, because the woman's theatrical manner softened slightly. Oh honey, is the little one feeling poorly? You look like you're about ready to drop yourself. I'm fine, Lily lied, swaying slightly on her feet. Adrian's hand shot out to steady her elbow. You're not fine, he said quietly. When did you last sleep? Actually sleep, not just doze on the plane. Lily tried to remember. The job interview in Portland had been scheduled for early morning, which meant she'd been up most of the night before, pacing and rehearsing answers while Emma teething had kept them both awake. Before that. A while, she admitted. How long is a while? Maybe, 36 hours? Give or take. Adrian stared at her like she'd admitted to juggling live grenades. 36 hours. Emma's been teething, and I had to prepare for the interview, and then there was the mix-up with the flight, and... Key, Adrian said sharply to Priscilla, who was watching their exchange with undisguised interest. Now. Of course, sugar. Y'all just take the elevator to the top floor. Can't miss it, there's a neon sign shaped like a lightning bolt right over the door. The Burning Love Suite was somehow worse than Lily had imagined. The heart-shaped bed dominated the room, covered in red velvet and surrounded by enough mirrors to stock a funhouse. The walls were painted deep purple with gold accents, and there were rhinestones embedded in the ceiling that twinkled like stars. Or like a very tacky version of stars. But Lily barely noticed the decor. Emma was getting worse, her little body too warm and her breathing slightly labored. She needed cool compresses, infant acetaminophen, and a proper place to rest. The bathroom has to have washcloths, Lily muttered, heading toward the door marked with a golden lightning bolt. The bathroom was just as overwhelming as the bedroom, all black marble and gold fixtures, with a guitar-shaped hot tub that took up half the space. But it did have washcloths, and more importantly, it had running water. Lily soaked a washcloth in cool water and brought it back to where she'd laid Emma on the massive bed. Her daughter's eyes were glassy with fever, and she was making soft, distressed sounds that broke Lily's heart. "I know, baby girl," Lily whispered, placing the cool cloth on Emma's forehead. "Mama's going to take care of you." But even as she said it, she could feel her own body betraying her. Her hands were shaking from exhaustion, her vision kept going slightly gray around the edges, and she had that loose, disconnected feeling that meant she was running on pure adrenaline and stubbornness. "Where's the nearest pharmacy?" Adrian asked, appearing beside the bed with his phone already in hand. "You don't have to." "Infant fever reducer," he continued, ignoring her protest. "What else does she need?" Lily's throat tightened with gratitude. "Maybe some children's electrolyte solution. And a thermometer. I should have brought one, but..." "Stop," Adrian said firmly. "Stop cataloging everything you should have done. You're not a mind reader, and you're not responsible for burst pipes or storm systems or any of the rest of this chaos." He was already dialing, his voice crisp and businesslike when someone answered. "This is Adrian Frost. I need items delivered to the Heartbreak Hotel immediately." A pause. "I don't care if it's after hours. I don't care if you have to wake up the pharmacy manager. I need infant acetaminophen, electrolyte solution, and a digital thermometer delivered within the hour." Another pause. "How much?" "Fine. Double it." He rattled off a credit card number from memory. 1 hour. Room 2010. He ended the call and looked down at Emma, who was watching him with fever-bright eyes. "That should help," he said quietly. Lily nodded, not trusting her voice. She adjusted the cool cloth on Emma's forehead and tried to ignore the way the room kept tilting slightly around the edges. "You should sit down," Adrian observed. "I'm fine." "You keep saying that. I don't think it means what you think it means." Despite everything, Lily almost smiled. Princess Bride reference? You'd be surprised what you pick up during hostile takeovers. Executives quote movies when they're nervous. Emma whimpered, and Lily immediately focused back on her daughter. "Shoo, sweetheart. It's okay." But it wasn't okay. Emma's fever seemed to be climbing, and the cool cloths weren't helping as much as they should. Lily's own hands were shaking harder now, and she was having trouble concentrating. "Maybe we should call a doctor," she said, trying to keep the panic out of her voice. "Already on it." Adrian held up his phone. "Dr. Sarah Chen is on her way. She's a pediatrician at Sunrise Hospital, and she makes house calls for the right price. You can't just, this must be costing you a fortune." "Money I have," Adrian said bluntly. "Sick babies, I have no experience with. I'm buying expertise." Emma's crying was getting weaker, more listless, and that scared Lily more than the screaming had. She tried to stand to get fresh washcloths, but her knees buckled slightly. Adrian was there immediately, his hands steady on her shoulders. "Sit down. Now." "I can't," Lily protested weakly. She needs you conscious and functional, not collapsed on the floor." His voice was firm but not unkind. "When did you last eat something? And don't say, a while, because we both know it's been longer than that." Lily tried to remember. "The crackers on the plane, maybe? But before that?" "I don't remember," she admitted. Adrian's expression darkened. You don't remember when you last ate? I've been busy. You've been running on empty for days, and now you're trying to care for a sick baby while you can barely stand up. He guided her firmly toward one of the ridiculous heart-shaped chairs. Sit. Stay. I'll handle the washcloths. You don't know how. Cool water, wring out excess, apply to baby. I think I can manage. He was already moving toward the bathroom, leaving Lily no choice but to sink into the chair. The relief of sitting down was so intense it was almost painful, and she had to bite back a groan. From the bathroom came the sound of running water, and then Adrian was back, carefully placing a fresh cool cloth on Emma's forehead. His movements were surprisingly gentle for such large hands. The doctor should be here soon, he said, settling into the chair across from her. And room service is bringing up something bland, soup, crackers, things that won't upset your stomach. I didn't ask you to. No, Adrian agreed. You didn't. You haven't asked for anything, actually. Not help, not food, not a place to rest. You just keep apologizing and trying to handle everything yourself. Lily looked at him across the ridiculous Elvis-themed room. Why are you doing this? Doing what? Helping. Staying. You could have booked another hotel, or gotten another flight, or anything. Instead, you're here in the tackiest room in Las Vegas, taking care of a sick baby and her disaster of a mother. Adrian was quiet for a long moment, his gray eyes studying Emma's flushed face. Maybe I'm curious, he said finally. Curious about what? About what it feels like to be needed for something other than money or power or connections. He glanced at her. It's been a while since anyone looked at me the way you did when I helped with the formula. Like I'd done something that actually mattered. Before Lily could respond, there was a knock at the door. Adrian stood immediately. That should be Dr. Chen. As he went to answer the door, Lily looked down at her daughter's flushed face and felt something shift in her chest. Adrian Frost, the Ice King himself, was taking care of them. Not because he had to, not because it was good business, but because he wanted to. And that terrified her almost as much as Emma's fever. The doctor was a small, efficient woman with kind eyes and gentle hands. She examined Emma thoroughly while Adrian and Lily watched anxiously from the sidelines. It's just a reaction to the altitude change and stress, Dr. Chen finally pronounced. Her fever should break within a few hours. Keep her hydrated, alternate cool compresses with fever reducer, and she should be fine by morning. The relief was so intense that Lily actually swayed where she stood. As for you, Dr. Chen added, fixing Lily with a stern look, when did you last sleep? Actually sleep, not just close your eyes while listening for the baby? A while, Lily admitted weakly. Right. You need rest. Real rest. Or you're going to collapse, and then who's going to take care of her? Dr. Chen looked between Lily and Adrian. Can someone else watch the baby for a few hours so you can sleep? I'll handle it, Adrian said quietly. Both women stared at him. You'll handle it, Dr. Chen repeated slowly. I'll watch her while Lily sleeps. How hard can it be? Lily and Dr. Chen exchanged a look that spoke volumes about the famous last words of confident men everywhere. But Emma was already looking better, her fever dropping and her breathing easier. And Lily was so exhausted she could barely see straight. A few hours, she said finally. Just a few hours of sleep. Take as long as you need, Adrian said. I've got this. As Dr. Chen packed up her supplies and left with promises to check in tomorrow, Lily settled Emma into a nest of pillows on one side of the heart-shaped bed. Her daughter was already dozing, looking more peaceful than she had all day. Are you sure about this? Lily asked Adrian, who was settling into the chair beside the bed with the dedication of a man standing guard. I've managed hostile takeovers, international mergers, and billion-dollar negotiations, Adrian said dryly. I think I can handle one sleeping baby. Lily wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could stay awake longer, but her body was shutting down whether she wanted it to or not. She curled up on the other side of the massive bed, as far from Adrian as possible, and closed her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered into the purple velvet pillows. "For everything." "Sleep, Lily," Adrian said softly. "We'll still be here when you wake up." And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Lily felt safe enough to let go and rest. Chapter 5. Adrian had been watching Lily sleep for 3 hours, and he was starting to realize he had a problem. Not the obvious problem, like the fact that he was sitting in an Elvis-themed hotel room in Vegas, playing nursemaid to a baby who wasn't his while a woman he barely knew slept in a heart-shaped bed. That problem was clear enough. The real problem was that he didn't want to leave. Emma had been perfect all night. After her fever broke around midnight, she'd slept peacefully, occasionally stirring to make soft baby sounds before settling back down. Adrian had checked on her temperature every hour, changed her diaper twice, with significantly more success than his first attempt, and even managed to get her to take a bottle when she woke up hungry at 3 a.m. He should have felt trapped, claustrophobic, desperate to escape back to his normal life of boardrooms and bottom lines. Instead, he felt useful. Needed in a way that had nothing to do with his net worth or his business acumen. His phone buzzed for the 100th time that night. Another message from his assistant, another crisis that needed his immediate attention. Adrian glanced at it, then deliberately set the phone aside without reading it. "Everything okay?" Lily's voice was soft and sleep-rough. She was awake, watching him with those warm brown eyes that seemed to see too much. "Fine," he said quietly. "How are you feeling?" "Better." She stretched carefully, mindful not to disturb Emma. "Much better. Thank you for letting me sleep. You needed it." Adrian stood, his body stiff from hours in the uncomfortable chair. "Emma's fever broke around midnight. She took a bottle a few hours ago and has been sleeping peacefully since." Lily sat up slowly, reaching over to check Emma's forehead. Her relief was visible when she found it cool and normal. "She looks so much better," Lily murmured. "You did good." The simple praise hit him harder than any business award or financial milestone ever had. "I should call the airport," Adrian said, more to himself than to her. "Check on flight status." But he didn't move toward his phone. "Right," Lily said, her voice carefully neutral. "You probably need to get to your meetings." "Probably." Still, he didn't move. Emma stirred, making soft waking up sounds. Lily immediately reached for her, but Adrian was already there, scooping up the baby with surprising confidence. "Hello, little one," he said softly. "Feeling better?" Emma blinked up at him with those big blue eyes, then made a sound that might have been a laugh. "I think she likes you," Lily observed. "She has questionable taste in men," Adrian replied, but he was smiling slightly as he said it. His phone rang, cutting through the comfortable moment like a chainsaw. Adrian glanced at the caller ID and his expression shifted from soft to stone in an instant. "I have to take this," he said, handing Emma back to Lily. "Adrian." His voice was crisp and businesslike as he answered. "What's the situation?" Lily couldn't hear the voice on the other end, but she could see Adrian's face growing progressively darker as the conversation continued. "I understand the timeline," Adrian said sharply. "I also understand that some things are outside our control." A pause. "No, I'm not making excuses. I'm dealing with an emergency situation." Another pause, longer this time. "That's none of your concern, Richard." Adrian's voice went dangerously quiet. "I'll be there when I get there." He ended the call and stood staring at his phone with the expression of a man who was seriously considering throwing it through the window. "Problem?" Lily asked carefully. "My business partner," Adrian said without looking at her. "He's concerned about the delays." "Oh." Lily's stomach twisted with guilt. "Because of us." "Because of circumstances beyond anyone's control," Adrian corrected firmly. But his phone was already buzzing again, and this time he ignored it completely. "You should go," Lily said quietly. "Really? Emma's feeling better, and I'm rested now. We can catch a commercial flight to Portland." No. The word came out sharper than Adrian had intended. He saw Lily flinch slightly and forced his voice to soften. Dr. Chen said to monitor Emma for 24 hours. It's only been 12. She's fine. She's better, Adrian corrected. That's not the same thing as fine. Lily studied his face with those perceptive eyes. Is that really why you want to stay? The question hung in the air between them like a challenge. Adrian could have deflected, could have hidden behind concerns about Emma's health or flight schedules or any number of reasonable excuses. Instead, he found himself telling the truth. I don't know, he admitted. I've never been in a situation like this before. What kind of situation? One where leaving feels like the wrong choice. Before Lily could respond, there was a sharp knock at the door. Not the polite tap of room service or housekeeping, but the kind of aggressive pounding that meant trouble. Adrian's expression went grim. That'll be Richard. Your business partner? The same. Adrian moved toward the door with all the enthusiasm of a man walking to his execution. He's not known for his patience or his tact. The pounding came again, more insistent this time. Adrian. A voice called through the door. I know you're in there. We need to talk. Adrian opened the door to reveal a man in his 50s with steel gray hair and the kind of sharp suit that screamed expensive attorney. His face was flushed with anger, and his eyes were the cold blue of winter ice. Richard, Adrian said evenly. I wasn't expecting you. Clearly. Richard Blackwell's gaze swept past Adrian to take in the ridiculous Elvis decor, then landed on Lily and Emma with undisguised contempt. So this is what's been keeping you from your responsibilities. Adrian's body went rigid. Careful, Richard. Careful? Richard pushed past Adrian into the room, his presence immediately making the space feel smaller and more hostile. We've lost 3 major deals in the past 2 days because you've been playing house with some Omega and her bastard. Finish that sentence, Adrian said in a voice that could have frozen hell, and find yourself a new business partner. Richard's mouth snapped shut, but his expression remained furious. You've lost perspective, Adrian. This infatuation is going to cost us everything we've built. Lily had gone very still on the bed, Emma clutched protectively in her arms. Adrian could see the way she'd shrunk in on herself, trying to make herself invisible. The Meridian deal alone is worth $50 billion, Richard continued, pacing the small space like a caged predator. $50 billion, Adrian. And you're throwing it away for what? A piece of tail and her screaming brat? The words hit the room like a physical blow. Lily made a small, wounded sound, and Adrian saw red. He had Richard against the wall faster than the older man could blink, one hand fisted in his expensive lapels. That's the last disrespectful thing you'll ever say about them, Adrian said quietly, his voice deadly calm. Do we understand each other? Richard's face had gone pale, but his eyes were still defiant. You're proving my point, Adrian. Look at yourself. Look what she's done to you. What she's done, Adrian repeated slowly, is show me that there are things in this world worth more than money. Like what? Playing daddy to some other alpha's bastard? Adrian's grip tightened, and for a moment Lily thought he might actually hit his business partner. Then Emma made a soft sound, and Adrian seemed to remember where he was. He released Richard and stepped back, his control restored but his eyes still blazing. Get out, Adrian said quietly. Adrian. Get out. Richard straightened his suit with as much dignity as he could muster. The board meeting is tomorrow at 10. With or without you, we're voting on the Meridian acquisition. Don't let your temporary insanity cost us everything. He stalked toward the door, then paused and looked back at Lily with contempt. I hope you're worth it, sweetheart, he sneered. Because you've just cost him his empire. The door slammed behind him, leaving the room in tense silence. Adrian stood with his back to them, his shoulders rigid with barely controlled fury. His hands were clenched at his sides, and Lily could see the rapid rise and fall of his breathing. Adrian, she said softly. Don't. His voice was rough. Just, don't. But Emma was fussing, picking up on the tension in the room, and Lily's maternal instincts overrode everything else. She stood carefully, bouncing Emma gently. "It's okay, baby girl," she murmured. "Everything's okay." But everything wasn't okay. Richard's words echoed in the silence, poisonous and cutting. "Bastard. Piece of tail. Temporary insanity." "He's right," Lily said quietly. Adrian spun around. "What?" "He's right. I am costing you everything." Lily's voice was steady, but Adrian could see the pain in her eyes. $50 billion, Adrian. That's more money than I can even comprehend. I don't care about the money. You should. Lily moved toward the small sitting area, needing distance from him. This is your life. Your empire. Everything you've built. And I'm destroying it. You're not. I am. She turned to face him, Emma still in her arms. Look at what's happened since I got on your plane. Delayed meetings, missed opportunities, your business partner flying to Vegas to stage an intervention. How much has this cost you already? I told you, I don't care about the money. Maybe you should start caring again. Lily's voice was getting stronger, more determined. Maybe Richard is right. Maybe this is just temporary insanity, and you need to snap out of it before you lose everything. Adrian stared at her. Is that what you think this is? Temporary insanity? I think you're a good man who got caught up in an impossible situation, Lily said carefully. And I think you're confusing responsibility with something else. Something else? Lily felt heat creep up her neck. You're an alpha. I'm an omega in distress with a baby. Your instincts are telling you to protect and provide, but that doesn't mean. Don't, Adrian said sharply, crossing the room in 3 quick strides. Don't reduce this to biology. Then what is it? Lily challenged. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like a very powerful man having a temporary crisis of conscience. Adrian was standing close enough now that she could see the flecks of silver in his gray eyes, could smell his expensive cologne mixed with something darker, more elemental. You want to know what this is, he said quietly. It's waking up every morning for the past 10 years feeling empty. It's building an empire that means nothing because there's no one to share it with. It's being called the Ice King so many times I started to believe it myself. His voice dropped even lower. It's watching you cry over your daughter's fever and realizing I'd give up everything I own to make sure you never have to cry like that again. The words hung between them like a bridge neither of them knew how to cross. Adrian, Lily whispered. I know you think I'm confusing instinct with emotion, he continued. Maybe I am. But I also know that I've never felt more like myself than I have in the past 2 days. Helping you, taking care of Emma, it's shown me what I've been missing. Emma babbled softly, as if adding her own commentary to the conversation. But Richard's right about one thing, Adrian said, his expression growing serious. Staying here, helping you, it will cost me. Probably more than I can afford. Lily's heart clenched. Then you have to go. Do I? The question was quiet, but it carried the weight of everything unsaid between them. Yes, Lily said, even though the word felt like swallowing glass. You have to go. Emma and I will be fine. We always have been. Adrian studied her face for a long moment. And if I don't want to go? Then I'll make the choice for both of us. Before he could ask what she meant, Lily was moving toward the bed, laying Emma down gently before grabbing her diaper bag. What are you doing? Adrian asked. Packing. Lily's voice was determinedly cheerful. Emma's feeling better, and there's no reason to keep you from your empire any longer. Lily. We'll catch a commercial flight to Portland. Emma will love her first real airplane ride, won't you, baby girl? But even as she said it, Lily could feel cracks forming in her composure. The thought of leaving, of walking away from the first person who'd made her feel protected and cherished in longer than she could remember, it was almost more than she could bear. Stop, Adrian said quietly. I'm almost done packing, Lily said brightly, stuffing diapers into her bag with unnecessary force. We'll be out of your hair in no time. Stop, Adrian repeated, his voice firmer now. Emma's bottle is clean, and I have enough formula to last until. Lily, stop. She kept packing, her movements growing more frantic. I just need to find her backup pacifier, and then we can call a cab. Adrian's hands closed over hers, stilling her movements. Stop, he said softly. Please. And that's when Lily finally broke. The sobs came from somewhere deep inside her, raw and painful and impossible to contain. All the stress and fear and exhaustion of the past few days crashed over her at once, but underneath it all was something worse, the devastating realization that she was falling for a man she could never have. I can't, she gasped through the tears. I can't be responsible for you losing everything. I won't be. Adrian's arms came around her then, strong and warm and impossibly comforting. Hey, he murmured against her hair. It's okay. It's not okay, Lily sobbed into his chest. Nothing about this is okay. You're supposed to be this ice king, this untouchable billionaire, and instead you're here in Vegas taking care of me and my baby like we're your responsibility. Maybe I want you to be my responsibility. The words stopped her crying as effectively as a slap. She pulled back to look at him, her eyes red and swollen. What? Maybe, Adrian said carefully, I'm tired of being the Ice King. Maybe I want to be the kind of man who chooses the woman and the baby over the empire. Before Lily could respond, his phone rang again. They both looked at it, then at each other. Richard, Adrian said grimly. Take it, Lily whispered. Take the call, go to your meeting, save your empire. Emma and I will be gone when you get back. Adrian looked at her for a long moment, then at his ringing phone, then back at her. Then he reached over and turned the phone off completely. No, he said simply. Adrian. I said no. His voice was quiet but absolute. I'm not leaving you. I'm not choosing the empire over this. Over you. Lily stared at him, her heart pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. Adrian cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away the last of her tears. I'm saying that Richard can handle the board meeting. I'm saying that the Meridian deal can wait. I'm saying that for the first time in my life, I've found something more important than money. What if you regret it? What if I don't? The question hung between them, full of possibility and promise and terror. Emma chose that moment to wake up fully, babbling happily as if she approved of the entire conversation. Besides, Adrian added, his mouth quirking into a smile, someone has to teach Emma how to properly terrorize corporate boardrooms. I have a feeling she's going to be very good at it. And despite everything, the impossible situation, the uncertain future, the fact that she was probably making the biggest mistake of her life, Lily found herself smiling back. Thank you for listening to the part 1 of this story. Sit tight and wait for part 2. It would be dropping a few hours from now.